Immigration attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your questions, but today I have a special topic. I am wearing blue because today is Wear Blue Day, because it's also Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And actually, the whole month is dedicated to trafficking awareness. But today is a fitting day to talk about trafficking. I did talk about trafficking in regards to labor trafficking yesterday, and I'm going to talk about it again because I feel like it is one of those areas that's overlooked. Individuals are here in the United States struggling day to day, not realizing that they qualify to get immigration relief. I did once represent someone who was in the United States for over 20 years who did not know that they could get relief as a trafficking victim. Well, as a result of the work of the firm, that client now has their status and now has all the benefits that they need to move forward, and they're on their way to become a permanent resident, because you can get permanent residence after you've been approved for the T status sometimes. Usually, the general rule is that you can get permanent residence after 3 years of being on T status. That's what the one of the statuses you get. Yup, 20 years. And some people are here, they're spending years going through a very hard time in the United States, not realizing that there is this type of relief. It's referred to as the T visa or the T status. And it offers a path to permanent residence eventually. You can apply for permanent residence after 3 years of being on this status, but there is a way to get around that to apply for early adjustment of status to get permanent residence even before the 3 years. So I'm going to be talking about the immigration relief that's available. But I want to first touch on what is trafficking, because I think the stereotypical viewpoint of trafficking is someone that's kidnapped, kidnapped by a gang or a stranger and then sold on the black market, usually within the sex trade, or they're put on the street to work the streets. And while that does happen, that is a form of trafficking. Trafficking comes in many different forms that especially affect immigrants who are here. And because of the immigrants' vulnerability in the United States, it tends to be prevalent among immigrants in the labor area of labor, and even in the context of sex trafficking, where an intimate partner may become a trafficker, or a relative may become a trafficker, even an acquaintance or a stranger that at first may have appeared to have good intentions, and they turn out to be traffickers. And the reason that how I identify a trafficking victim is not by necessary. So when I do consultations, an individual usually has to describe what they've been through, and this is how detailed my consultations are. That I do get to that level of history with individuals that I do consultations with, because I want to make sure that they understand all the options and immigration relief that's available to them. And so one of the things is I do screen their employment history, their family history, their experiences in the United States, to be able to understand in the United States and maybe even outside of the United States, to understand if they have been the victim of trafficking along the way on their journey to the United States, or in the United States at any point in the past. And this is where many of who are now my clients become they're surprised, because they never thought that this was an option. So I want to talk about some of these forms of trafficking. So let's start with the employment context. So, if you have been in a situation, or you'll see, usually starts with ads in the paper, or a referral from a friend or family member. Maybe that family member may be aware of the that the employer is a trafficker. They may not be aware, and they refer their relative to that employer. Or you'll see WhatsApp advertisements, or advertisements in the newspaper in your country saying, come to the United States, come work. As I'm going to talk about a common area where you may be the caretaker in a group home, or in an adult care facility, or a home, a long term care facility where you have to take care of disabled individuals. The ad may be very enticing. And it may say, come work in the United States as a caretaker. Usually, the recruiters, there's usually a middleman involved, or a middle person involved, that will tell you that they're placing you. They may require a fee to place you in the position. And then when you get to the position, first of all, it's you're if you think you're working legally, you probably aren't, because there is an immigration process in place to become the employee of a US employer. If you enter the United States with a visa, if an employer is saying, I can get you the work permit or the green card, and I can get it within 6 months, be aware. Its chances are it's all lies, because the process of sponsoring an employee, while the processes may be different depending on your profession, depending on your qualifications, there's going to be a process involved, and the process usually will take a year at minimum. You do have to go through a labor certification process at the Department of Labor for some of these. You do have to have a work permit in hand before you actually start to work, and it has to be a valid one, no fake papers, to start working for the employer. So if you're coming to the United States, or you are being enticed to come to the United States to work in a position like this, and other types of positions, maybe agriculture, it may be construction, it may be truck driving. If they're telling you that you can just fly in and start working for them, and you would be legally working for them, this will not it's not right. um, and that in itself doesn't mean that there's trafficking, right? Because there's a little more to trafficking, but it usually is the first indication that is heading in that direction. Because the next thing is, when you do get to the place where you're supposed to work, you find that all these promises were false. You're maybe not getting paid on time. Maybe they become abusive towards you. You're working 24/7. You don't have control over your times off. You may be you may be deprived of food, deprived of sleep. You may not have control over your privacy, or your rooming, or who the areas that you lodge in. You may not have control over leaving the wherever you're working. These are all indications that you may be going through labor trafficking, because here are the common factors, right? That you are induced by fraud. So usually, if they're promising you that they can get your work permit, or they're promising you that they can eventually they'll be able to get you your papers, that's a form of fraud. Or so if by force, fraud, or coercion. And they're also, when you get into that position, you may find that this is not work that you agreed to. This is not work that you were willing to do. So, for instance, if you are hired as a caretaker, and usually the what I hear is, you'll only have one patient, or you'll only have a few patients, and you'll have all the support you need, and you'll have all the certifications you need. But when you get into the situation, you find yourself overwhelmed, taking care of patients that usually have medical needs, serious medical needs. But not only are you the caretaker, but you are also the maid, you're also the cook, you're also, even the medical assistant, where you are taking temperatures, taking blood pressure, you're giving medication. If you find that now you're doing work that you did not agree to do, but you now feel like because of the fraud, because of the coercion, you can't leave. And when I say coercion, at the point where now you're doing all of this work, you're really no longer willing to move forward, but you either express or indicate to the employer that you want to get out of this situation, and then you start to either get through behaviors against you, or they may straight up say to you certain things like you'll face certain consequences if you leave. So for example, if you indicate that you're going to leave and they indirectly or directly tell you they're going to call ICE on you, or they're going to stop your paperwork, they're going to write to the immigration office and tell them that you're no longer working there, or that ICE will come and get you and deport you, or that you'll owe them money if you leave. These are all forms of coercion, right? They're using threats of harm, not only physical harm, but financial harm, reputational harm. They may tell you if you leave this job, you'll never get another job anywhere else. All of that is a form of coercion that under immigration law and even under the trafficking law counts as coercion. So a threat of harm in some way, harm to your reputation, physical harm, harm to your reputation, use of the legal process to make you feel like you're going to face severe legal consequences if you don't stay. And in some cases, physical harm. You may be physically intimidated to stay. You may be subjected to certain even forms of torture. You may be lodging, so you are in the physical control of the employer. The employer may be putting you up to live somewhere, and as a result of that, they may be doing things to keep you sleep deprived and reduce your judgment, or to just make it a very uncomfortable situation. So these are some of the things that I have seen as the attorney of trafficking victims. And if you are in a situation where you're either at the recruiting stage, or where now you have some knowledge of the red flags that lead to trafficking, you can empower yourselves to stop that situation. Or if you're in this situation, you should know that you qualify for immigration benefits. Now, I just want to stop for a minute to say, if you were the victim of attempted trafficking, you will also qualify for immigration benefits as well. Now, there is a process in place. So when I do my consultations with individuals, I go through all the details. I ask my clients what their current situation is. I go through their history to find any signs of this type of trafficking. And then once I do determine that my client qualifies, we get straight to work. I do represent my clients, and there are steps that we have to take to move forward with this type of T status application. So, for one, if it is related to a labor trafficking situation, usually our go-to is the Department of Labor, because there is the requirement that this is reported in some way. Whether the law enforcement office is going to go ahead and investigate is another matter, and which is something that I have to advise my clients about, and we do represent our clients through that entire process. But the office may choose not to investigate, may choose not to do any further queries into the situation. They may in some cases, unfortunately, the law enforcement office, so for example, the Department of Labor, or if it's involving other types of crimes or severe physical harm or abuse, then it may involve law enforcement. So that could be the FBI, it could be the local law enforcement. If it does, in some cases, they may not even think it's trafficking themselves. But at that point, it does not, the certification of the law enforcement office or the support of the law enforcement office is not the main requirement here. What the main requirement here is that it is reported in some way. And then we submit our case to the immigration service that makes the ultimate decision about the immigration benefits that you could receive through being the victim of trafficking. But it doesn't matter at what point this happened to you. It could have happened 20 years ago. It could have happened 6 months ago. This relief is available to you. And the policy manual, they have made a policy manual that helps immigration officers determine whether you qualify, more friendly to immigrants, so that the officers can understand that trafficking is not just restricted to individuals who have been physically harmed, but also to those who have been harmed through fraud, through coercion, through physical force, or in some sort of force, that they have been harmed emotionally as well. Now, once we go through those steps, right? So qualification, and make sure that the client is willing and able to go through the reporting to law enforcement and any additional questions that may come up from law enforcement, which law enforcement is not necessarily the police, but it could be the Department of Labor, it could be the Human Services Department, it could be the FBI, it could be another type of federal agency, it could be the local prosecutor or the local, um, uh, so a local police department. It's going to differ from case to case. For example, in domestic violence situations, that's where we would then look more to local law enforcement to help with an issue like that. But when we're dealing with labor issues, then it would be the Department of Labor. And we spearhead that for our clients, to ensure that our clients are comfortable as we navigate the process. But once all of this is filed, we make our case to the USCIS. Then the next thing is that the USCIS will issue a decision. And once an approval comes through, then at that point, you're able to get your work permit. As a matter of fact, we have, just before we've even gotten the work permit, the approval notice, we've gotten the work permit. And then we receive the social security number on behalf of our clients. And that means that they're now able to get important benefits. So they get an I-94. An I-94 enables the client to stay in the United States for 4 years. They get the work permit that enables them to start to use that to work and to use as identification as as proof of their legal status. And then their social security number is also very important, especially when it comes on to the benefits that they will receive. The difference here is that one of the differences here between T status and other types of immigrants is that once you obtain T status, you're able to get benefits you need, social benefits that may include Medicaid, it may include food assistance, it may include counseling, it may include other housing assistance. So the benefits, and this is totally permissible, because many immigrants think once I'm an immigrant, I'm not going to qualify, but that's the difference here. is that T status immigrants do get the same types of benefits that refugees coming into the United States can obtain without facing any consequences of being seen as a public charge. So there's valuable, very valuable benefits, life-saving benefits that can be granted in a situation like this, where they've been the victim of trafficking and they desperately need these benefits to move forward with their life in the United States. Another benefit here that you can receive is that you can, not only you can get this, but your family members can get this. So your spouse can get this if they are also undocumented. Your children who are under 21 and unmarried can get this. And if you are if you're under 21, your parents can get this. And your siblings who are under 18 and unmarried can get this along with you. So not only do you get the benefits, but this can also be a lifeline for your family members that may be in the same situation as you, and they need assistance, and they would be able to get the same benefits that you would be able to get having T status. So that in a nutshell are the types of immigration relief that you can get as a victim of trafficking. And trafficking comes in different forms. You may be watching this right now, and what you're going through, the word trafficking may not come to mind. You may think, I'm going through a hard time, I'm being abused, I'm being mistreated, I'm being taken advantage of, I'm even feeling stuck in this situation, but it's definitely not trafficking. And I'm here to tell you that once you're in this type of situation, check with me, do a consultation so we can talk about your situation, because it means that you could very well be the victim of a form of trafficking, because it comes in different forms. Let me talk about another scenario of trafficking, and that's with an intimate partner. Because that's another situation. For example, you'll hear me talking about VAWA, right? And if you're being mistreated by a US citizen or legal permanent resident spouse or parent or adult child, you could apply for your own benefits. However, what if you're not married? What if this person is not your spouse, your parent, or a citizen, son or daughter, and they certainly are not citizens or residents? What do you do in this situation? Well, this trafficking T status or even being the victim of a crime could be the alternative here. So if you have been with a partner, an intimate partner, for example, and they are mistreating you, they're forcing you to stay in this situation, forcing you to do things you really don't want to do, but you feel like you must do it because they're either threatening you by force, threatening you emotionally, or coercing you, then this could also be a form of trafficking. And this is what we help our clients with as well. So um, keep that in mind. Now I'm going to go ahead and answer questions. It can be anything that's immigration related. If you want to ask questions, I welcome questions about trafficking today, because I'm trying to bring to your awareness the broad definition of trafficking and what it could entail. Keep in mind that if someone is also trying to keep you restrained to a job and they're trying to say that you owe them money or you will owe them money, or that your debt keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and you can't seem to leave the situation because you keep owing them money, this could also be due to the trafficking. So, I look forward to speaking with you, to assisting you if you're going through this. If you have gone through this, there's no time limit on it. Just give us a call and we can evaluate your facts and then determine whether this is a relief that you could obtain. Now, I see here if undocumented, So thank you for, I don't know if you meant to ask if the person is undocumented, can they still move forward with this form of relief? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, most clients, if not all my clients, who are trafficking victims are undocumented. They've either crossed the border without permission, or they've been smuggled into the United States, or they came and overstayed because they were promised work, and the work turned out to be a trafficking situation rather than a work situation or a valid employment situation. And even if you have on your own record, you have immigration violations, you may have a criminal conduct against you. Keep in mind that there are ways to apply for special forgiveness to be able to still get this T status. And in some cases, if the what happened to you, if the for example, were smuggled into the country. If you came in with a fake passport and it is directly related to the trafficking, then you may not even need a separate waiver to get forgiveness for this and to still get the T status. It's going to depend on whether you need a separate waiver or not, is going to depend on the particular circumstances involved. Um, all right, put those questions in the comments. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm on YouTube and I'm on Instagram. So Ricky Flossie, deep topic, it is. Definitely it is, just because, there's no easy way to tackle this issue, but I do want to keep you educated about it so that if you are in a situation where you're considering working in the US based on an ad in the paper, that you can ask the right questions, you can know what a valid employment looks like versus a potential trafficking situation. And I would say this: if an employer says that you have to work for them first before they're going to get your paperwork, get your work permit, run. Because it's false, right? No employer in the United States should be telling you that you should work for them first without a work permit before they will actually file for your papers, because the opposite is required. You're supposed to get your papers, your immigration papers. The employer is supposed to get it for you, or you're supposed to get it, depending on how you're going to get it. But you have to have some kind of work authorization before you start working. So if an employer is telling you that, first you have to work for them before they do anything, it means that that's a definite red flag that things may not go very well, and that they will, at a minimum, take advantage of you. So if an undocumented person witness a person stabbed their spouse in the tummy, can undocumented person get TPS? So no, TPS is for citizens of certain countries. It depends. Now, if you witnessed it, and you yourself were the victim of the crime, if you were assaulted in some way along with your spouse, or that you were one of the victims of the crime, you could apply for what's called U status. And then remember, the extent of your qualifications or eligibility for anything is going to depend on all the facts. Because if your spouse was attacked in this manner, what was it related to? What was the larger context of the situation? But TPS is not for a situation like this one. TPS is temporary protected status. It's different from the T visa, G status. Temporary protected status is where, if a country is going through turmoil or the conditions are really bad in the country, they will give grants to certain citizens of the country within a certain period of time who have been in the US for a certain period of time. They will give them a temporary status to be protected from deportation. All right. Keep putting those questions in the comments. It can be anything that's immigration related. After fingerprints taken, how long to get EAD by FAWA case? So I wouldn't be able to tell you after the biometrics. Biometrics are all over the place, but in general, after filing, you could be looking at 6 to 8 months. That's the average, but I've seen as long as 12 months to get that work permit. Why does Government Processing Center take so long to approve the I-130? It's backed up. If they're taking that long, it's backed up. That's why. My fiance just got his green card through his mom filing for him. Is there a certain amount of time we need to wait before we can get married so we can file for mine? We both are currently in Jamaica. So if your fiance is in Jamaica, and he has not left yet, he is not a green card holder yet. He has to enter the United States and be processed. So he'll enter the United States with an immigrant visa. He'll be processed at the airport or the border, and then they will grant him an I-551 stamp in his passport to serve as proof that he is a permanent resident. That's a temporary stamp until he gets the actual green card in the mail. So you want to make sure that if you're both in Jamaica, you want to make sure that he first went through that whole process to actually be a permanent resident. Because when you get approved at the embassy, it means that you got approved for an immigrant visa. But you have to be very careful because between the time you get the immigrant visa and the time that you arrive in the United States and are successfully processed, you're not actually a permanent resident yet. So you want to make sure that you go through those steps before. After your fiance becomes a permanent resident, it depends on your particular circumstances, and this is not particular advice for you because I'm not your attorney. But generally speaking, the once they become a permanent resident, they are free to get married. Since it's through the mom, they are usually free to get married. All right. My sister's husband filed for her, and they later filed for a stepchild, and they were approved and still waiting. What could be the cause? So, it's if they're approved but still waiting. It sounds like this is an embassy situation where the immigrant is outside of the United States, and so they have to wait for that whole process to be completed. It is taking long if you are applying from outside of the country. All right, so I don't see any more questions. Thank you for listening today. I really hope I gave you valuable information that educated you and shed new light on trafficking, especially on this day of Human Trafficking Awareness Day. That you did get a new perspective on trafficking, and also on ways that you're able to get immigration relief if you've been through this, whether you're undocumented or not, and it doesn't matter how long ago this happened to you, we can assist you. So go ahead. If you have been through a situation like this, know that my firm focuses, this is one of the focus areas of the firm, is to assist victims of trafficking to get immigration relief. And we have a whole team that assists our clients with the whole process, getting through the whole process. And we try to make this as comfortable of a process as possible for our clients. So get in touch with us. Let's talk about your situation and get started right away. Go to the link in the profile if you want to get in touch, schedule a consultation first. And the way to do that is go to the link in the profile. It's going to take you have the website, you have a link to schedule your own appointment. You can choose any one of those. When you get in touch with the office, you'll talk to the scheduling coordinator who will assist you with getting the appointment done. And if you don't want to call, schedule your own appointment through that online system. Thanks so much for the love. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow. Now, The topic I'm going to be talking about tomorrow is I'm going to be talking about how to choose a good immigration lawyer. Because the number one thing that I hear is I will get, sometimes disgruntled people will call the office asking to schedule a consultation because they can't talk to their attorney. And so that's a major issue is if you can't communicate with your attorney, you may have a big problem on your hands as you go through the process. I want to talk to you about choosing a good immigration attorney, what I do as an attorney, the importance I place on making the client, making my firm client centered, right? It's about the client at all times. And so I will go ahead and talk to you about ways to spot red flags, and how to choose a good attorney going forward. All right. So have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.